I stood in Mom's kitchen, the gilt-edged invitation shaking in my hand. "Next Saturday," she blinked, set the coffee pot down, and said flatly, "The wedding. It was last week." The whole family laughed under fairy lights while I stared at a dark screen until I found out who changed the date and why. They thought I'd cry, pull out my wallet, and forgive. But this time, I have paperwork, new locks, and a very patient lawyer. My name is Sloane Carter. I'm 32 years old, and I am, by all professional metrics, a success. I'm a digital transformation manager at Ridgeline Systems, a mid-level tech firm in Denver that pays me well to tell legacy companies how to stop living in the 1990s. I have a clean condo, a Peloton I actually use, and a 401k that's thriving. I am competent. I am reliable. I am, to my family, completely invisible. My family consists of my mother, Linda Hale, who is 59, my father, Thomas Hale, is 63, and my sister, Brooke Hale, is 28. They are the Hales. I am Sloane Carter. I took back my grandmother's name in college. A small act of rebellion they found confusing. Growing up was a masterclass in shadows. I was the shadow. Brooke was the sun. Everything revolved around her. The gravitational pull of her needs was absolute. I remember the flash of pink taffeta for her 8th grade dance, a dress that cost more than our utilities for that month. I wore a hand-me-down from our cousin. I remember the gleaming white paint of her 16th birthday car, a surprise party in the driveway while I was inside scrubbing the grout in the guest bathroom to help out. Brooke got the parties, the new season clothes, the effortless charm. I got the responsibilities. I got the harsh, whispered advice from Mom. "Don't be so sensitive, Sloane. You're the smart one. You should understand." Understanding meant getting a full-ride scholarship because there was no college fund. It meant working 3 jobs on campus, not for beer money, but to send cash home when Dad's consulting gigs dried up. It meant graduating summa cum laude and taking the first high-paying job I could find, not because I loved data migration, but because the salary was a shield. But the shield was permeable. The calls always came. "Sloane, honey, your father's truck needs a new transmission. Just a little tight this month." "Sloane, you know Brooke. She's an artist. She just needs a little boost." Last year. A little boost was $11,200 to wipe out a credit card debt she'd amassed trying to launch her brand. I stared at the balance, a dizzying list of brunches, boutique clothing, and weekend trips to Aspen. "This is reckless. Brooke," she'd laughed, a light, airy sound that always made me feel heavy. "Sloane, relax. It's just money. Family doesn't keep score." But I did. I had a spreadsheet. 2 years ago. It was the house. The foundation of their suburban ranch home, the one I grew up in, had a crack. Not just a crack, but a structural fissure that threatened the whole frame. The quote was $28,400. "We'll lose the house, Sloane," Mom had cried into the phone, a performance of practiced despair. "Everything we've built." I didn't ask what they had built. I just looked at my brokerage account, the one I was building for my future, and I liquidated it. I saved their home. They hosted a barbecue to celebrate getting through it. I wasn't invited. I was working overtime to make up for the loss. Holidays were the worst. I'd drive in from Denver, a 90-minute trip with perfectly chosen gifts. I'd walk into a living room so full of Brooke's friends, distant relatives I barely knew, and random neighbors, that there was nowhere to sit. "Sloane, you made it," Mom would say, kissing the air near my cheek before turning back to a platter of pigs in a blanket. "There's a folding chair in the garage. I think—" One Thanksgiving, after I'd cooked half the meal in my own kitchen and hauled it over, I was told the guest room is being used by Brooke's friend from yoga. I was pointed to the lumpy basement futon. I ate my turkey standing at the counter, was handed a trash bag to help clean up, and then was politely, firmly, invited to leave. "It's just so crowded, honey, you understand. We'll have real family time soon." They never did. So when Brooke's wedding invitation arrived, I was skeptical. It was thick. Cream-colored cardstock, engraved. The date was clear Saturday, the 18th. The venue was a chic, rustic luxe barn in Boulder. My sister was getting married, and I was invited. A strange, unfamiliar flicker of hope ignited. Maybe this was it. Maybe, as an adult with a real life, I would finally be seen as part of the family, not just its ATM. I decided to try, really try. I went on a diet. I hit the gym with a vengeance, channeling years of quiet rage into the elliptical. I dropped 14 pounds. I spent a ridiculous amount of money on a moss-green silk dress that made my eyes look bright. I booked a suite at a hotel near the venue. I cleared my work schedule, delegating a major project launch. I was ready, which brought me to this moment. Today, standing in my mother's kitchen, the same yellow-tiled kitchen I'd scrubbed as a kid. The invitation was in my hand. I was beaming, genuinely happy. "I'm so excited for next week," I said, leaning against the counter. "I got the most beautiful dress for the wedding. Is Brooke frantic with the final details?" Mom didn't look up. She was at the sink, rinsing her favorite floral mug. The water drummed against the ceramic. "Mom," I said, "I'm excited for the 18th. She turned off the tap. The silence that followed was heavy, wet. She picked up a dish towel and began drying the mug, her motions slow, deliberate. "The wedding," she said, her voice completely flat, devoid of all inflection. "Oh, that was last week. Sloan." It felt like a punch, but I hadn't registered it. "What? No, the invitation says the 18th. That's next Saturday." She finally looked at me, not at my eyes, but at my shoulder, as if I were a piece of furniture she needed to dust. "No, it was last Saturday, the 11th. It was beautiful." She turned back to the counter. She placed the mug in the dish rack. She looked at her wedding ring, twisting it on her finger. She did not once, look at her daughter. The invitation in my hand suddenly felt like a prop from a cruel play. "The 18th. Must have been a typo," she murmured, already moving toward the coffee pot. More coffee. A typo. My heart didn't just break. It plummeted. It fell straight through the floor, through the cracked foundation I had paid for, and into the cold, dark earth beneath. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The air in my lungs had turned to cement. I just turned, walked out the back door, and got into my car. I sat in the driver's seat, the engine off, the silence of the suburban street deafening. The tears didn't come right away. First came the numbness, that cold, familiar blanket of realizing I was, once again, the punchline. Then the tears came, hot, acidic, blurring the windshield and the overly manicured lawn across the street. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so hard I could barely unlock it. I opened Instagram, Brooke's profile. It was the first thing on her feed, a professional, sun-drenched album posted exactly 7 days ago. The caption, "The best day of my life, 11/11, married my soulmate." There she was, in a cloud of white lace, kissing her new husband, Brandon. There was Mom, buttoning the back of the dress, her face glowing with pride. There was Dad, walking her down an aisle scattered with white rose petals, weeping openly. There were my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, all of them, laughing, raising champagne glasses under strings of fairy lights. Everyone was there, everyone except me. I wasn't just forgotten, I was erased. My phone buzzed in my lap, making me jump. It was my cousin, Naomi. She was the only other outcast, a lawyer from Chicago who they also found too serious. I answered, my voice a wet croak. "Hello." "Sloan. Oh, God. You heard." I'm at Mom's. She just told me." There was a heavy sigh on the other end. "Sloan, I am so sorry. I almost called you last week, but I didn't know what they'd told you." "What do you mean?" "What they told me." "I asked your mom at the rehearsal dinner where you were," Naomi said, her voice tight with anger. "She told me, right to my face, that you were going through a lot right now and weren't feeling stable enough for big crowds. She made it sound like you were having some kind of breakdown." The blood drained from my face. "She what?" "It gets worse." I heard her and Brooke talking by the bar later. Brooke was laughing. "Sloane," she said, "it's a blessing. Honestly, can you imagine? She'd just spend the whole night telling everyone about her spreadsheets and her salary. Your mom just nodded and said, 'It's your day, sweetie. No one should ruin it.'" The invitation was still clutched in my left hand. I opened it. Saturday, the 18th? A typo. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an oversight. This was a deliberate, calculated, meticulously cruel act. They hadn't just excluded me, they had replaced me with a lie. They had painted me as unstable to justify my absence, an absence they themselves had manufactured. The tears stopped. Instantly, the numbness evaporated, replaced by something cold, hard, and perfectly clear. It was the clarity of a balance sheet finally adding up, the click of a lock falling into place. They thought I was the family ATM, the reliable, invisible, emotional punching bag they could drain and discard. I put the key in the ignition. The engine turned over with a smooth, quiet hum. I pulled out of their driveway, my eyes dry. They had no idea who I was. They had no idea what I was capable of. They thought family didn't keep score. They were wrong. I had every single receipt, and the game was just beginning. I didn't drive home, not right away. I ended up in the parking lot of a 24-hour supermarket, under the buzzing green-white glare of a faulty fluorescent light. The shock had frozen my veins, but my brain, the part of my brain they all mocked, was running at full capacity. I am a manager of digital transformation. I don't just fix problems. I analyze failed systems. I find the flaw in the code, the breakdown in the process, the human element that corrupted the data. And this was the ultimate system failure. My family was a corrupt system. I finally drove back to my condo. The silence of the car, a welcome vacuum. My home is all clean lines, gray quartz and glass, orderly, logical. I walked straight to my home office. I took the creamy, thick stock invitation, the one that said Saturday the 18th, and I put it on my scanner. I scanned it, front and back, and saved the file as Exhibit A, PDF. Then I opened my email archive. I searched Brooke and saved the date. There it was. From 6 months ago. An Evite. A breezy, informal thing with a photo of her and Brandon in a field of wildflowers. I'd seen it, registered the date, and filed it away. Knowing the formal invitation was what mattered. I looked at the date on the Evite, November 11th. I opened the email's source code. I didn't even need to dig. The metadata was right there. Sent May 10th, received May 10th, to Sloane, carteridgeline.com. They had sent me the correct date 6 months ago, knowing I wouldn't act on it. They relied on me, the formal one, the busy one, to wait for the paper invitation, and then they had printed a single, fraudulent copy, a document with a typo so deliberate it was genius. It was a weapon designed specifically to exploit my own sense of propriety. The second piece of data was Naomi's phone call. She'd just spent the whole night telling everyone about her spreadsheets and her salary. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking in the quiet room. The Sloane is boring and obsessed with work narrative. When had that started? I started pulling threads. I remembered Christmas, 2 years ago, Aunt Carol, pulling me aside. "Linda mentioned you're just so dedicated to your career. It's wonderful, dear. But don't forget to live." I'd been confused. I'd just paid for their flight to be there. I remembered a family barbecue last summer. Uncle Mike, clapping me on the back. "Brooke tells me you find all this family stuff a little dull. Don't worry, we won't talk shop." I'd smiled, baffled, while holding a platter of burgers I'd bought. It was them. It had always been them. Linda and Brooke, working in tandem. They were seeding this narrative for years, a long, slow-burn smear campaign. They weren't just excluding me from a wedding, they were retroactively justifying a lifetime of it. They were painting me as the cold, transactional workaholic, so that when they finally delivered the killing blow, everyone would just nod. Typical Sloane. Can't be bothered. They painted me as the villain in a story I didn't even know was being written, and the motive. Why go to such lengths? I opened the file they all joked about. Financial family support, XLSX, my spreadsheet, the one Brooke said I'd wave around at the wedding. I had never shown it to anyone. It was my private ledger of shame, theirs and mine. I didn't need to look at the totals. I knew them by heart, but I needed to see the lines. Date April 4th, 2023. Payee Apex Foundation repair. Amount $28,400. Memo structural stabilization for Hale residents. Date July 12th, 2024. Payee Capital 1. Amount $11,200. Memo payoff for B. Hale card balance. Line after line. $500 for Dad's truck. $800 for Mom's root canal. $2,000 for Brooke's security deposit on an apartment she kept for only 6 months. The why was suddenly, sickeningly clear. It wasn't that I was boring. It was that I was remembering. I was the living record of their failures. My presence, my success, a success they leached off of, was a mirror. They didn't hate my work. They hated that my work made their dependency possible. Brooke didn't want me at her wedding, not because I'd talk about my job, but because my face was a reminder of the $11,200 of debt she'd champagne brunched her way into. They didn't just want me gone. They needed me erased. I sat there, staring at the screen, until the sun started to rise, painting my gray walls a pale, surgical pink. I hadn't slept. I just felt a cold, clean certainty, and then, as if summoned by the devil himself. My phone buzzed on the desk, a text message, from Mom. I stared at it for a full minute before I could even process the words. Hi, honey. Hope you have a good day. Dad needs a new catalytic converter for the truck. The part is $320. He needs to get it today before the shop closes. Can you send it over this morning? Love you. Love you. The two most weaponized words in the English language. It wasn't a closing. It was a signature on an invoice. It was the glue they used to stick the demand to the request, hoping I wouldn't notice the extortion underneath. The audacity of it. The sheer, colossal, breathtaking audacity. To orchestrate my humiliation, to lie to my face, to treat me like a stranger, and then, not even 24 hours after I'd found out, to send a new bill. $320. My fingers hovered over the banking app. It would take me 10 seconds to pay it, to make the problem go away, to be the good daughter. The old Sloane would have paid it. She would have swallowed the acid in her throat and sent the money, just to keep the peace. I closed the app. I looked at the text. Love you. No, not this time. I wasn't going to send the money, and I wasn't going to reply. A text message is a coward's tool. They'd used one to wound me. I wouldn't use one to fight back. I decided to answer in person. This is what I do. I manage the people side of system transitions. You can't just flip a switch. You have to go on site and look the stakeholders in the eye. I grabbed my keys. I still had one to their house. The emergency key they'd given me years ago. Just in case. The irony was so thick I could barely breathe around it. I parked 3 houses down, my throat dry. I walked up the driveway, past the flower beds I'd paid to have mulched. I slid the key into the lock. It turned, silently. I stepped into the foyer. I heard them before I saw them. Laughter, light, easy, celebratory. I walked into the living room, the one with the foundation I'd saved, and there they were, Mom, Dad, and Brooke. She was back. She must have just gotten off the plane from her honeymoon. She was on the sofa, glowing, tanned. She was clicking through photos on the smart TV, the one I'd bought them last Christmas. And this was the view from our balcony in Santa Barbara, she was saying, as a picture of a perfect orange-pink sunrise filled the screen. It was incredible. The mimosas were endless. Oh, T-Bone, look at that, Mom murmured, leaning against Dad's shoulder. Just perfect. Perfect, Dad agreed, beaming. A perfect, happy family. I cleared my throat. The invitation said the 18th. It was like a switch had been thrown. The laughter vanished. The smiles didn't just fade. They shattered. Brooke's head snapped around. Her face, so tan and happy a second ago, went a pale, blotchy white. Mom flinched, her hand flying to her chest. "Sloan, you scared me." Dad just looked annoyed. "You should knock. Sloan, I have a key," I said. Walking further into the room, I held up the fraudulent invitation. "This says Saturday, the 18th. Mom told me yesterday the wedding was last Saturday, the 11th. I looked straight at Brooke. "Why did you send me a fake invitation?" Brooke looked at Mom. Mom looked at the floor. "Sloan, honey," Mom started, her voice taking on that high, placating tone. It all got so complicated. With the vendors and the lists, it was a mistake." "A mistake," I repeated. "Then why, Brooke, did you tell Naomi I was unstable and not well enough for crowds?" Brooke's face hardened. The mask of the victim snapped into place. She stood up. "Oh my God," she spat, her voice rising. "That's what this is about. You're going to come in here and ruin this. Ruin what? Brooke, your honeymoon slideshow." "It was my day," she shrieked, her hands balling into fists. "My one day. And I knew you would make it all about you always do." The accusation hung in the air. So ludicrous, so profoundly untrue, that I almost laughed. How have I ever made anything about me? "Exactly like this," she yelled, pointing at me. "By being you. You'd come in, talking to all my friends about your big, important job, your promotion, your salary. You make everyone feel small. You look down on us, on my work. I wanted one day where I didn't have to compete, where it wasn't about Sloan Carter, the digital transformation manager." There it was. The truth? Finally, the poison they'd been whispering had come straight from the source. My voice dropped, the anger solidifying into something cold and heavy. "Compete?" I took a step closer. Brooke flinched. "Were I competing with you when I paid $11,200 to clear your credit card debt last year?" Her mouth snapped shut. I turned my gaze to my parents, who were watching, frozen. Was I making it about my salary when I transferred $28,400 to save the foundation of this house, the floor you are standing on right now? The silence was absolute. Mom finally broke it, rushing forward, hands fluttering like wounded birds. "Sloan, stop it. You're making this ugly. Don't make such a big deal out of it." "A big deal," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You fabricated a legal document to exclude me from a major life event. You lied to our entire family about my mental health. You humiliated me. It is a big deal." I looked at my father. He hadn't moved. He was staring at the blank television screen, his jaw set. "Dad," Thomas Hale let out a long, weary sigh, the sigh of a man deeply inconvenienced. He picked up the remote, fiddled with it. He still wouldn't look at me. "Family is family, Sloan," he muttered, finally turning his empty eyes to me. You let things go. That's what you do. You let things go." The family motto, the summary of my entire existence. I was the one who let things go. I let go of my money, my time, my boundaries, my self-respect, and they, in turn, let go of me. That was the answer. All the analysis, the spreadsheets, the metadata, it all boiled down to this. They didn't care. I looked at the three of them, the spoiled child, the cowardly enabler, and the vacant patriarch. Screaming would do nothing. Screaming was what they expected. Screaming was unstable. I placed the fake invitation on their coffee table, right next to a stack of Brooke's honeymoon Polaroids. "This isn't over," I said. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement of fact, a project update. I turned and walked out of the living room. I walked through the foyer. I opened the front door and closed it, very gently, behind me. The click of the latch was the only sound. I got back in my car, my hands perfectly steady on the steering wheel. I started the engine. I looked at the house in my rearview mirror, the house I'd saved, full of people who would rather I didn't exist. I put the car in drive and pulled away from the curb. "The old script ends here," I whispered to the empty car. "The old script ends now." That confrontation in their living room was the inciting incident. In my world, that's the moment a system breach is confirmed. The old Sloan, the one who let things go, had been decommissioned on the drive back to Denver. The new one, the one who manages crisis transformations, was now in control. My anger wasn't hot. It was cold. It was the cold of a server room, all humming efficiency and white noise. I didn't go back to the spreadsheet. I didn't need to. I knew the numbers. The $11,200 for Brooks' revolving debt. The $28,400 for the foundation. Those were just operational expenses. They were the cost of doing business as the Hale family's designated adult. But they weren't the real investment. I walked to the steel, fireproof file cabinet in my home office. I spun the combination lock. It wasn't the flimsy thing you buy at an office supply store. It was a commercial-grade safe. I pulled open the heavy top drawer, past my 401k statements, past my Ridgeline employment contract, to a thick, pale blue accordion file. The label, printed from my own machine, read Pine Hollow Cabin. This was the one, the big one, the real leverage. This was 5 years ago. I was 27. I had just received a massive, life-altering stock payout and retention bonus from Ridgeline. It was the kind of money I'd only read about, and right on cue. The family system had developed its biggest crisis yet. My father, in a fit of misguided ambition, had co-signed a predatory loan for one of his consulting buddies. The buddy defaulted. The lender came from my parents, and they were leveraged to the breaking point. The bank was initiating foreclosure proceedings on their primary residence, the ranch house. They didn't just need a patch, they needed a bailout. I remember my mother, Linda, sitting at my quartz kitchen island, her voice a practiced whisper of devastation. "We'll lose everything. Sloan, everything." They had one asset left that wasn't cross-collateralized, the family cabin up in the mountains, the one my grandfather built. They suggested I buy it from them. "Just to keep it in the family, honey. We'll buy it back from you someday." Of course. I knew they never would. I also knew I wouldn't let them be homeless. I wired $210,000 cash to a title company. I bought the Pine Hollow cabin. I saved their home. It was the first time, the biggest time. The foundation payment 2 years ago was just an aftershock. I pulled the documents out now. The original, notarized warranty deed. I ran my thumb over the raised seal from the county clerk. Owner Sloan Carter, an unmarried woman, my name, only my name, even at 27. I was smart enough for that. I found the document I drafted myself, based on the SaaS contracts I reviewed every day at work. It wasn't a lease. A lease implies tenancy, rights, no. This was a permissive use license. I read the key clause aloud to the empty room. Linda Hale and Thomas Hale are granted a revocable, non-transferable license to utilize the Pine Hollow property, contingent upon prior written request and approval by the owner, Sloan Carter, for each specific use. This license creates no tenancy and may be revoked by the owner, for any reason or no reason, with 30 days written notice. I scrolled through my email archive. The last written request from my mother was 14 months ago, for a ladies' church retreat. Since then, nothing. They had just been using it, assuming access. Their entitlement had breached my own contract. This was no longer a family dispute. This was a contracts and property law issue. I picked up my phone. I didn't call a therapist. I didn't call Naomi. I called Dana Ortiz. Dana and I had spent 3 sleepless nights in a conference room at Ridgeline, hammering out the liability clauses for a massive, multi-million-dollar software integration. She was a civil litigator, but her specialty was contracts. She was sharp, fast, and completely unsentimental. She understood complex systems. She picked up on the second ring. "Ortiz?" "Dana, it's Sloan Carter. I'm calling on a personal matter, not Ridgeline business. I have a property and contract issue. I need to hire you for a consultation. Full rate. There was a brief pause. Sloan, this sounds specific. Send the documents to my secure portal. Title, the use agreement, anything else relevant. Give me 1 hour. I scanned the deed, the permissive use license, and Exhibit A, the fraudulent wedding invitation. I wrote a 1-paragraph summary, no emotion, just the data. I hit send. My phone rang exactly 1 hour later. Okay, Dana's voice was crisp, all business. I've reviewed the file. First, the good news. Your title is clean as a whistle. You are the sole owner. There are no liens, no co-owners, no recorded easements that give them any rights. That permissive use license you wrote, it's ironclad. It explicitly prevents them from claiming they are tenants. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. So they have no rights. Legally none. But there's a problem, your pattern of non-enforcement. You've let them use it without written permission. So they've become tenants at will. We can't just call the cops and change the locks. Not yet. We have to follow procedure. What procedure? We serve them with a notice of revocation of license. It functions just like a 30-day notice to vacate. It formally, legally terminates their permission to be on the property. Good, I said. The word was a chip of ice. Draft it. I want it ready to serve. Drafting, she confirmed. But what happens on day 31? Sloan, what if they just stay? Or what if they show up next week, before the notice period is even served? I want a no trespass letter, drafted and ready to be filed with the local sheriff's department. One for Linda Hale, one for Thomas Hale. I paused. The system analyst in my head was running permutations. And one for Brooke Hale. Brooke isn't on the license, Dana noted. She's the primary threat vector, I said, my corporate speak sliding into place. She's the reason for this. I want a frozen list, an official, legal list of individuals who are barred from my property, effective immediately. If they set foot on it, I want them removed. Understood. Notice to vacate. 3 no trespass letters. Anything else? A new thought was connecting. The confrontation. Brooke's shriek. You look down on my work. Her brand as an interior stylist. Her Instagram feed, full of rustic chic living rooms. Yes, Dana. One more thing. My sister, Brooke Hale, is a freelance stylist. She uses social media heavily for her business. My blood was running very, very cold. I need your firm to run a search. I want every post, every website, every portfolio she has online scrubbed. I want to know if Brooke Hale Designs has, at any time, used photographs of my cabin to promote her business or secure clients. Dana was silent for a beat. You think she's been using your asset for commercial profit? I think she's been lying for years, I said. I'm just finding out the scope of the fraud. If she's using my property to get clients, that's unauthorized commercial use. It's misrepresentation. It's theft. It's a significant breach, Dana agreed. Her voice was hardening. 2. She smelled blood in the water. It gives us leverage beyond the simple revocation. I'll get our paralegal on it immediately. That's smart. Sloan, very smart. So, to be clear, Sloan, Dana said, her voice dropping into a lower advisory tone. This is the full-scale approach. This isn't a warning shot. This is a declaration of war. I looked out my condo window. The Denver skyline was sharp against the blue. Dana, they launched a preemptive strike. They humiliated me. They lied about my mental health. And they did it all while cashing my checks. This isn't retaliation. This is just setting legal boundaries. This is risk management. Got it? Dana said. I like managing risk. I'll have the drafts and the preliminary IP report by end of day. I hung up. The legal machine was in motion. But I'm a hands-on manager. You don't just send emails and hope a system fixes itself. You go on site. You do a physical audit. I hadn't been to Pine Hollow in 6 months. The last time I'd planned a weekend. Mom had called. Oh, honey, not this weekend. The chimney sweep is coming. It was a lie. I knew it now. It was all lies. What was the current state of my asset? I grabbed my car keys, a down vest for the mountain air, and the original hard copy file for Pine Hollow Cabin. I didn't know what I would find. Maybe it was empty. Maybe they were throwing a post-wedding party. Maybe Brooke was there right now, taking photos for her portfolio. I got in my car and headed west, toward the mountains. The drive up I-70 is usually a release. Today, it was a commute. The sun was getting low, that sharp, clear gold light of a Colorado afternoon. The aspens were fading from yellow to brown, and the air had a bite. I turned off the highway, onto the winding 2-lane road that led up the mountain. My phone lost service, as it always did. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel sad. My heart wasn't pounding. It was slow, steady. I felt like I was going to a deposition. I felt like I was going to a final audit, the one where you finally present the findings and shut the failed project down. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. The gravel of the private road crunched under my tires. The trees cleared, and the cabin came into view, and my heart, the one I thought was frozen, stopped dead. There were cars in my driveway, 3 of them. None of them were my parents' truck. They were expensive. A new black Audi sedan, a white Range Rover, and a silver Tesla, and they were all pointed toward my house. I parked my Subaru behind the Tesla, boxing it in, a small, tactical move. I cut the engine and the mountain silence rushed in, only to be immediately punctured by a voice, her voice. It was Brooke, but not the Brooke I knew. This wasn't the whining, petulant Brooke. This was a smooth, confident, professional voice. It was the sound of a sales pitch. I grabbed the blue Pine Hollow file from the passenger seat. My hands were steady. My heart was a cold, hard knot in my chest. I walked up the stone pathway, the one I'd paid a landscaping crew to install in 2020, and saw the heavy oak front door was propped open with a rustic driftwood welcome sign I'd never seen before. They hadn't just stopped by. They were hosting. I stood in the shadow of the entryway, just outside the threshold, and I listened. Brooke was standing in the center of the great room, my great room, gesturing expansively with both hands. She was wearing an expensive-looking cream cashmere poncho. She looked the part. I had to give her that. Her audience was a man and woman in their late 50s, both exuding the kind of casual wealth that doesn't need to try, and a younger woman, an assistant, typing silently on an iPad. And the centerpiece, of course, is this fireplace, Brooke said, her voice dripping with faux sincerity. She ran a hand over the massive, floor-to-ceiling river stone. I hand-selected every piece of this stone myself. I had to fly to Montana twice to get the color and texture profile exactly right. It was a brutal 6-month installation, but my team and I pulled it off. The effect, as you can see, is completely authentic. The woman nodded, her expression rapt. "It's just breathtaking, Ms. Hale. Your vision?" The man chimed in. "This is the precise aesthetic we're trying to capture for the new lodge. You're sure you can replicate this, at scale?" "Absolutely," Brooke said, not missing a beat. "This cabin is my signature, rustic, but elevated, raw, but curated. If you sign for the $85,000 staging package for your hotel lobby, this is the exact level of detail and authenticity my brand provides. $85,000. The lie was so enormous, so audacious. It sucked the air from my lungs. She flew to Montana, a 6-month installation. Her team. I gripped the file in my hand. That fireplace was the only part of the original cabin my grandfather built in the 1960s. It was the one thing I'd refused to touch during the renovation. Brooke hadn't flown to Montana. She'd been in Boulder. Failing a sociology course, the man was reaching into his jacket. "Well, your work speaks for itself. We're prepared to sign the letter of intent today." I chose that moment to step out of the shadow. My boot heel hit the oak plank floor. Clack! It was the only sound in the room. 4 heads snapped in my direction. The wealthy couple looked curious. The assistant, annoyed. Brooke's face, it was a thing to behold. It was a rapid 5-stage collapse. The blood drained from her face, leaving her Santa Barbara tan a sickly yellow. The confident smile froze, cracked, and fell away. replaced by pure, unadulterated panic. "Sloan," she choked out. What are you doing here? I didn't know you were coming." "Clearly," I said. My voice was calm, quiet. I didn't look at her. I looked at the clients. "I was just admiring the backsplash in the kitchen," I said, walking past them. I ran my fingers over the slate tiles. "It's nice work, but it's not from Montana." I turned to face the group. "I have the Home Pro receipt. It was $780. The contractor's name was Tony R., from Idaho Springs. He did it in 3 days." The room went absolutely still. The assistant looked up from her iPad. "I'm sorry. And you are?" "I'm Sloan Carter," I said. "I own the house." Brooke made a small, strangling sound. "Sloan, stop it. Don't be like this. This is my meeting." "This is my house," I said. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I didn't need the paper file. I had the PDF of the deed in my secure drive. I held it up so the assistant could see the screen. "Owner of record Sloan Carter. Purchased June 10th, 2019, $210,000. The assistant's eyes flicked from the phone to Brooke. Her expression was now ice. "Ms. Hale," the assistant said. "You told us this was your personal property, your design portfolio." "It is," Brooke shrieked, her voice going high and thin. It's a family asset. We all share it. Sloan just handles the boring stuff, the spreadsheets." She was trying it again. The boring Sloan narrative. It was a fatal miscalculation. The man, who had been silent, now spoke. His voice was gravel. "The boring stuff, like the 6-month installation of a 60-year-old fireplace." The woman looked at Brooke with a gaze so cold it could freeze water. "Or the hand-selected stone from Montana, which, I assume, was also a spreadsheet." Brooke had nothing. She was completely, utterly exposed. The artist was a fraud, and her canvas was stolen. I looked at the couple. "My sister, as you've gathered, is not the owner. She is not the designer. She is, in fact, trespassing. She does not have my permission to be here, and she absolutely does not have my permission to use my property to secure an $85,000 contract under false pretenses." The man didn't hesitate. He snapped his leather portfolio shut. The sound was final, like a judge's gavel. "We do not work with liars," he said, the words clipping the air. He turned not to Brooke, but to me. He pulled a card from his wallet and handed it to me. "Ms. Carter, my name is Arthur Vance. If you decide to press charges for fraud, call me. We will be happy to provide a statement on your behalf." He and his wife, followed by the silent, efficient assistant, walked straight out the front door. They didn't look at Brooke again. The sound of their expensive car doors shutting, the gravel crunching as the Audi, the Range Rover, and the Tesla backed out of my driveway that was the sound of Brooke's $85,000 lie evaporating into the thin mountain air. For a full minute, neither of us spoke. Brooke stood, shaking, in the middle of my living room, not with fear, not with remorse, with pure, unadulterated rage. "You!" she finally screamed. The word echoed off the vaulted ceilings. You bitch. Do you have any idea what you just did? That was my life. That was the biggest contract I have ever landed. You just ruined me." I walked slowly over to the fireplace, the one my grandfather had built, and ran my hand over the cool, familiar stone. "No, Brooke," I said, turning to face her. "The truth ruined it, not me." "I hate you," she shrieked, her face twisting. "You've always been jealous of me. You have your stupid, boring job, and I'm the one with the talent, the vision. You couldn't stand it. You couldn't stand to see me finally get something." "Get something," I said, my voice dangerously low. "I paid off $11,200 of your credit card debt. I paid $28,400 to keep our parents' house from collapsing. I paid $210,000 for this cabin, this very floor you're standing on, to save them from foreclosure. You haven't gotten anything. Brooke, you've taken, and I'm here to turn off the tap." "Get out," I said. "What?" she whispered. the rage suddenly draining away, replaced by a flicker of genuine fear. "Get out of my house. You are trespassing. You can't kick me out," she sputtered. "This is our family cabin. It's our cabin." "It was never your cabin," I said, stepping toward her. "It has been, from the moment of purchase, legally and exclusively mine. It was just another line item on my boring spreadsheet. Brooke, the biggest one, and my patience for funding this family's delusions is officially over." She saw it in my eyes then, the finality, the end of the "let it go, Sloane." Her face crumpled, the rage dissolved, and the next tactic emerged: the tears. "Sloane, wait, please," she whimpered, the tears now streaming down her face. "Please, I needed this. Brandon, his parents, they don't think my styling is a real job. This was going to prove it to them. I can call Mr. Vance back. I can tell him you're just the money partner. We can split it." It was disgusting. Even now, she was trying to cut a deal. "Get out, Brooke," I said, pulling out my phone. "Or I will call the sheriff's department and have you removed for trespassing." That did it. The word sheriff. She grabbed her purse and her stupid cashmere poncho. She ran to the door. A mess of tears and mascara. She wrenched it open and then turned back, her face a mask of pure venom. "Mom and Dad will never forgive you for this," she hissed. "Good," I replied. She slammed the door so hard, a small puff of dust came down from the frame. I listened as her car peeled out of the driveway, spraying gravel against the side of my Subaru. The silence that descended was absolute. It was my silence. In my house, I walked through the rooms. The cloying scent of her perfume was everywhere. The guest room bed was unmade. There were champagne glasses in the kitchen sink. She hadn't just been here for a meeting. She'd been living here, probably since she got back from Santa Barbara. I walked to the west window, where I knew I got one bar of service. I pulled out my phone and Googled locksmith, Idaho Springs. Mountain lock key. "This is Earl." "Earl," I said. "This is Sloane Carter at the Pine Hollow property off exit 240. I have an immediate security breach. I need every lock on this house rekeyed. Today. Ma'am, it's almost 4:30 on a Friday. That's a minimum 4-hour emergency call-out fee." "That's fine," I cut him off. "I'm authorizing it. I have the deed of ownership on site. I'll pay in full, with cash, on completion." There was a pause. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I hung up and immediately called Dana. "Sloane, I was just about to email you the IP report. It's bad. She's got your cabin all over her Instagram. You can stop the search." "Dana," I said, walking out onto my deck and looking at my mountain view. "I have visual confirmation. She was actively using the asset to secure an $85,000 contract. I just terminated the meeting." Dana let out a long, low whistle. "Okay. That escalates things. The tenants at will argument just went out the window. That's a material breach of any implied license. You have cause." "I'm having the locks changed as we speak," I said. "The frozen list is now in effect." "Good," Dana said. "This is clean. You caught her red-handed. We can serve the no trespass notices immediately. This is a fortress now. Sloane, legally. Thank you. Dana, send me the bill." I hung up. Earl, the locksmith, arrived 45 minutes later. He was a grizzled man who looked like he'd been born in the mountains, and he didn't ask a single question. He just got to work. I sat on the deck, the cold air biting my cheeks, and I watched him, the whirring of his drill, the click-clack of new tumblers falling into place. It was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. 2 hours later, as the last light of the sun disappeared behind the peaks, he handed me a single, newly cut brass key. "That's it, ma'am," he said, handing me the invoice. "The deadbolts, the handle locks, the woodshed, and the garage, they're all on this one key. Any other keys out there?" He motioned to the woods. "Are just scrap metal now." I paid him, adding a 50% tip. He nodded, impressed, and drove off into the dusk. I stood on my porch for a long time. The mountain air was sharp and clean. I walked to my new front door. I slid the new, solitary key into the lock. It turned, smoothly. Click. I stepped inside and locked the deadbolt behind me. Thunk. A solid, final, metallic sound. The only key. It was heavy in my hand. It wasn't just a key to a house. It was a key to my life. And I was the only one who had a copy. I spent that Friday night at Pine Hollow. I slept in my own bed, behind my new, solid-core deadbolt, with the single brass key on the nightstand beside me. I didn't dream. I woke up on Saturday, the day of the fake wedding invitation, and I felt nothing but a profound, chilling quiet. The anger from the confrontation with Brooke had cooled, hardening from a liquid rage into solid steel. I drove back to Denver, the blue file on my passenger seat. Earl the locksmith had secured the physical asset, but the confrontation with Brooke, her $85,000 lie, the unauthorized use of my property, it had exposed the real vulnerability. This wasn't just about emotional exclusion. This was, and always had been, about money, my money. They thought of me as a system, an ATM, a resource to be mined, and as a digital transformation manager. I knew what you do when a system has been fatally compromised. You don't just patch it. You don't just change one password. You take it offline. You rebuild the entire security architecture. You deauthorize every legacy user. I spent the weekend drafting the project plan. On Monday morning, at 8:45 a.m., I wasn't at Ridgeline. I was in the glass-walled office of Marcus Reed, my financial advisor. Marcus is, essentially, me, but with stocks. He's not a, let's talk about your dreams advisor. He's a, let's look at the data advisor. His office is minimalist, gray, and silent. He manages my brokerage account and my IRA. He's the one who advised me on the stock payout that bought Pine Hollow. He slid a tablet across the table. Sloan, you said on the phone this was a full security review. That implies a breach. What's compromised? The human element, I said, sitting back. My family. I need to sever every financial tie, every single one. I want you to run a full audit of my entire financial footprint, every account, every card, every beneficiary. I want to find every vulnerability, every shared access point I may have forgotten about, and I want to burn it to the ground. Today. Marcus didn't blink. He just nodded, turning to his terminal. Understood. Let's start with liabilities. He pulled up my credit report. One co-signed card. Capital One. Co-signer Brooke Hale. The card from last year. The one with the $11,200 balance I'd paid off. I paid that to zero, I said. But the account is still open. She has a $20,000 credit line in your name, Marcus said flatly. She hasn't used it since you paid it off. But she could, right now. Close it, I said. Immediately. Notify her of the adverse action. I don't care. Closing, he typed. Next, banking. Your primary checking and savings are secure. Ridgeline payroll, 401k, brokerage, all sole ownership. He paused. His fingers stopped typing. What? I said. This, he said, turning the monitor. There's a legacy account, a joint savings account at U.S. Bank. You opened it 8 years ago, back when you were in college. The balance is low, $312, but the co-signer is Linda Hale. My stomach twisted. An account I'd set up so she could send me money for books. It had, of course, only ever been used by me to send her money. I hadn't thought about it in years. It was a ghost. I thought I closed that, I whispered. It's active, Marcus said. He clicked. And it's been used, recently. Let's look at the withdrawal history. He pulled the statement. My blood turned to ice. September 14th. Withdrawal, $2,900. October 2nd. Withdrawal, $1,450. That's almost $4,500, I said, my voice numb. Where had that money come from? I looked closer. It was an automatic transfer. My bonus from Ridgeline. I'd set up an auto transfer of 10% of my bonus to that savings account years ago, as a rainy day fund, and I had forgotten to turn it off. I had been paying them to rob me, but it was the last transaction that made me physically ill. Date November 13th. That's, I said. 2 days ago, Marcus finished for me. The day after your confrontation at their house. The withdrawal was for $760. I remembered my mother's text, the one I'd ignored. Dad needs a new catalytic converter, $320. I'd refused to send it, so my mother, faced with the audacity of my refusal, had simply logged into the joint account I'd forgotten we shared and taken it. She took the $320, and then she took an extra $440, just for her trouble. "Sloan," Marcus said, his voice quiet. "Close it," I hissed, the word a venomous puff of air. "Close it now. Sweep the remaining balance to me. I don't care if it's $3. She's going to get an alert," Marcus said. "Good. I want her to." "Okay. Joint account closed. What's next? This is your asset profile. Brokerage, IRA, 401k, life insurance policy, through Ridgeline." He pulled up a new screen. Beneficiaries. There they were, in black and white. Primary beneficiary, Linda Hale mother, 50%. Thomas Hale father, 50%. Contingent beneficiary, Brooke Hale sister, 100%. If I walked out of Marcus's office and was hit by a bus, everything I had ever worked for, the Ridgeline stock, the mutual funds, the entire structure of my life would pass directly to the people who had forged an invitation to their own daughter's wedding. The ultimate irony. They excluded me in life, but they would inherit everything from me in death. "Get rid of them," I said. "All of them. All of them. I want them gone. Strike their names from every document." Marcus's fingers flew. "Deleted? We need a new primary and a new contingent." I thought for a second. "Primary Naomi Carter, my cousin, 100%. Done. Contingent. The Denver Public Schools Foundation," I said, inventing it on the spot. "A needs-based scholarship for girls going into STEM, 100%. I'll get you the exact EAN number this afternoon." In the space of 30 seconds, I had redirected the entire value of my existence away from the Hales and toward the only family member who had told me the truth, and a future I actually believed in. "Done," Marcus said. "Beneficiaries updated, credit card closed, joint account closed. What else?" "I want to build a firewall," I said. "They've lied. They've stolen. What's next? Forging my signature on a loan application. I want a credit freeze. All 3 bureaus. Now." "Sensible," Marcus nodded. He was already clicking through the portals for Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. "A full freeze. We'll also place a 1-year renewable fraud alert. Nobody gets $1 in your name without speaking to you on your cell phone. Period." "One more thing," I said, the thought connecting as he worked. "Power of attorney. They had me sign a stack of papers when my dad had his consulting business medical forms. Just in case. I need to know if I signed a POA." Marcus ran a search. "Nothing's been filed with the state, but that doesn't mean a springing POA doesn't exist in a file cabinet somewhere. We can fix that. We will file a new, superseding, durable power of attorney, effective immediately, naming me as your agent for financial matters and Dana Ortiz as your agent for legal. Then, we will file a revocation of all prior powers of attorney with the county clerk. Even if they have one, it will be legally nullified as of 1 minute from now." He printed the documents. I signed them. My hand was perfectly steady. "Okay, Sloan," he said, stacking the papers. "Your financial fortress is built, your assets are secure, your beneficiaries are updated, your credit is frozen, your identity is locked. They are, officially, cut off." As I was gathering my things, a thought struck me. It was about the fake invitation. "Marcus, wait, can you check my mailing address on file with all these accounts?" He scanned the screen. "All point to your condo. Except what?" "The old U.S. bank account, the joint one. The primary address on that was Linda Hale's house. The paper statements were going to her." My blood ran cold again. But I haven't gotten paper statements in years. No, but the address is in the system, as a prior address. I thought about the logistics. The Evite had the real date. The paper invitation had the fake one. Marcus, is it possible for someone to request a temporary mail redirect from the U.S. Postal Service without the person's knowledge? Marcus's face darkened. It's illegal as hell. It's mail fraud. But if you have access to someone's personal information, which your mother absolutely does, it's just one form. USPS Form 3575. You can file it online. I pulled out my phone and went straight to the USPS website. I logged into my Informed Delivery account, the service that emails you scans of your mail each day. I'd set it up and forgotten about it. I scrolled back past the 11th. And there it was, an email from the USPS, dated October 25th. Address change verification. I'd missed it. It had come on a busy workday. Looked like junk mail, and I had ignored it. A temporary mail forward had been placed on my address. All my mail was being redirected to Linda Hale's house in the suburbs. From October 25th until November 12th, the day after the real wedding, they hadn't just sent me a fake invitation. They had hijacked my entire mailbox to ensure the real one, and any RSVPs or questions from other guests never reached me. This was a conspiracy. This was a federal crime. I took a screenshot and emailed it to Dana Ortiz with the subject line, Addendum USPS Mail Fraud. Marcus looked at the screenshot, his professional calm finally breaking. He looked physically angry. "Sloan," he said, "from this moment on, you don't speak to them. Not a text, not a call, nothing. Anyone wants to talk about money, they go through me. Anyone wants to talk about anything else, they go through Dana. You are a black box. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. I stood up, feeling lighter, stripped down, secure. I walked out of his office and into the bright Denver sunlight. I got into my car. I turned on the ignition, and the phone, which had been silent all weekend, exploded. It was a barrage, a hailstorm of notifications. Text, Linda Hale. "Sloan, the bank just said our account is closed. What did you do? Call me text. Brooke Hale. You kicked me out of the cabin, and now you're stealing Mom's money. You are a psycho text. Linda Hale. Sloan. Elizabeth Hale. Pick up the phone this instant. This is a terrible mistake text. Thomas Hale. Your mother is hysterical. Fix this. Text. Brooke Hale. Mom is crying. I hope you're happy. You finally destroyed this family. My phone was vibrating so hard it was rattling in the cup holder. They were panicked. The system had been taken offline. The ATM was no longer dispensing cash. I watched the texts pile up, one after another, a cascade of pure, unfiltered panic. I took a deep breath. I picked up the phone. I didn't open their messages. I started a new text, a group message to Linda, Thomas, and Brooke. My fingers typed one single, beautiful sentence. For all future financial and legal correspondence, please contact my attorney, Dana Ortiz, Escao. Her details are attached. I hit send. And then, for the first time in my adult life, I blocked their numbers. Blocking their numbers felt like installing the final piece of the firewall. It lasted exactly 22 hours. The system, finding its usual ports, blocked phone, text, bank accounts, did what any desperate user would do. It found a new vulnerability. It found the one place they knew I had to be. I was in a deep dive session, mapping a client workflow on a whiteboard, when my desk phone buzzed. Not my cell, my Cisco desk phone. It was Annette, the reception manager for the Ridgeline campus. Her voice was thin, vibrating with stress. "Sloan, I'm sorry to bother you. I have two individuals in the lobby, a Linda and a Thomas Hale." She paused, as if waiting for me to deny knowing them. "They say they're your parents," she continued, her voice dropping. "And Sloan, they're refusing to leave. They're demanding to see their daughter. They're causing a bit of a scene." I didn't sigh. I didn't freeze. I simply capped my whiteboard marker. "Annette, thank you. You did the right thing by calling. They are not to be allowed past the security turnstiles under any circumstances. Please have Rick Martinez, our head of security, meet me by the main elevators. I will be down in 2 minutes. They seem very upset. Sloan, I'm aware, I said. 2 minutes. I hung up. I unplugged my laptop. I slipped the blue Pine Hollow file, the one with my copies of the new legal documents, into my leather tote. I grabbed my cell phone. I went into my evidence folder, the one I'd created after the weekend, and I queued up the video file Naomi had sent me. Rick Martinez is a serious man. He's ex-military, and he runs the Ridgeline campus like a fortress. He met me by the elevator bank on the ground floor. He didn't ask personal questions. He just noted the set of my jaw and said, "Ms. Carter, they're by the waterfall. This way." The lobby at Ridgeline is a 3-story atrium of glass, marble, and polished chrome. It's designed to impress, to intimidate. Every sound echoes. It is the last place on earth you would want to have a family scene, which is exactly why they'd chosen it. They were standing in the middle of the floor, looking small and wildly out of place. Mom was in a crumpled windbreaker, her face blotchy and swollen from crying. Dad was in an old, stained polo shirt, his arms crossed, radiating a kind of impotent fury. They saw me. Mom surged forward, her voice a desperate wail. "Sloan. Oh, thank God we've been your phone. You blocked us. You blocked your mother." Rick took one precise, lateral step, placing his body between us. His voice was polite but hard as granite. "Ma'am, please remain where you are. Ms. Carter will speak to you from here." "I am her mother!" Linda shrieked, the sound bouncing off the marble. A few employees heading to the cafeteria paused, their eyes curious. "Mom," I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried in the atrium. "You are in my place of business. You are trespassing. You have 30 seconds to state your purpose before I have you removed." "Our purpose," she sputtered, as if the concept was insane. You froze us. The bank, the card, the account, Sloan. What did we do? We needed some help. We're your family." I didn't answer her. I looked at my father. He was staring at his shoes, his jaw grinding. "You don't know what you did?" I asked. "You're confused about the why." I held up my phone. I unpaused the video. I held the screen out, facing them. It was Brooke. At the rehearsal dinner, she was holding a champagne flute, her face flushed and giddy. The fairy lights I'd seen in the Instagram photos were twinkling behind her. Her voice, bubbly and slurred, filled the lobby. "And a toast," she giggled. "To a perfect day, and thank God Sloan couldn't be here." "Right, Mom. Can you imagine she'd just be in the corner, judging everyone and telling them about her spreadsheets and her salary? So, to a wedding without the transformation manager." The camera panned, and there was my mother, Linda Hale, laughing, and raising her glass. "To your day, sweetie." I hit stop. The silence in the lobby was total. The only sound was the hissing of the digital waterfall behind them. Rick Martinez looked from the phone back to my parents, his expression unreadable. My mother's face, which had been red with indignation, went a sickly, pale color. She turned her head, unable to look at me, unable to look at Rick. She stared at the chrome frame of the revolving door. My father, Thomas, just kept staring at his shoes. Not a word, not, "I'm sorry," not, "It was a mistake," not, "Brooke was drunk," nothing. "You were right there, Mom," I said, my voice echoing slightly. "You laughed. You toasted my exclusion." She was just joking," Linda whispered to the doorframe. "No," I said. "That was the truth. This," I motioned to their presence here, "is the consequence. Sloan, please." Mom finally turned, and the mask of the victim was back, the tears welling up instantly, a practiced performance. "You don't understand. We're in trouble. Real trouble." This was it, the pivot, the real reason they were here. "We got a letter," she rushed on, her voice cracking. The bank. Because you closed that old account, it triggered a review. They're calling the note on the house. The house. Sloan. The one you saved. She was referencing the $28,400 foundation. She was trying to cash in on my previous generosity, to leverage my past affections. They're going to foreclose, she cried, the sobs becoming theatrical. We have nowhere to go. She's a mess. She lost that big contract. We just need Pine Hollow. Just for a few weeks. Just until we get on our feet. You wouldn't let your own parents be homeless, would you? The question hung in the air. The ultimate moral test. I looked at her, the tears streaming down her face. Pine Hollow is not a life raft, I said. The words were flat, final. What? Linda whispered. Pine Hollow is a private asset. It is not a homeless shelter for people who commit mail fraud. My father, who had been a statue of shame, suddenly exploded. The word fraud hit him like a cattle prod. He lunged forward, faster than I'd seen him move in years, and grabbed my arm. His fingers dug into my blazer, tight and bruising. You ungrateful child, he snarled, his face inches from mine, flecks of spittle hitting my cheek. After everything He didn't finish. Sir. Rick's voice was a cannon shot. He had my father's wrist in a professional, painful-looking grip before Thomas could even tighten his. Remove your hand from Ms. Carter, now. Rick didn't pull. He just applied pressure. My father yelped, his fingers flying open as he stumbled back. This is a corporate campus, Rick said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous command. We have a zero-tolerance policy for harassment and assault. You will step back. You will not touch her again. Do you understand me, sir? My father cradled his wrist, his face purple with rage and humiliation. My arm throbbed, but I didn't rub it. I didn't flinch. I let the pain anchor me. I reached into my tote bag. I pulled out the blue Pine Hollow file. I took out 2 sealed, 9x12 envelopes. I stepped past Rick. I handed one to Linda. I placed the other one on my father's chest, holding it there until his non-injured hand took it. What is this? My father spat. That, I said, is a formal, notarized, no trespass letter, signed by me, filed by my attorney, and registered with the county sheriff's department for the Pine Hollow property. It informs you that if you, or your daughter Brooke, set foot on my land, you will be arrested. Linda's hand went to her mouth. The letter fluttered from her other hand to the marble floor. This is your only warning, I continued, my voice ringing out, clear and cold. The next time you try to access my property, or my office, I glanced at Rick, or my person, I will not be serving you a letter. I will be calling the police and pressing charges for assault. This was the breaking point, the mask of the victim, the mask of the enraged patriarch. They both disintegrated. Linda dissolved. It was a full-body collapse, a keening, wailing sob that echoed off the high ceiling. No, Sloan, you can't do this. My father just stood there, shaking, his rage defeated. He looked at me, his eyes hollow. We're family, he whispered, the words sounding pathetic, a final, failed password to a system that no longer existed. I looked at him. I looked at my mother, sobbing on the floor. I felt nothing, just the dull, sharp ache in my arm where he'd grabbed me. Family doesn't forge invitations to erase their daughter, I said. I turned to Rick. Rick, they're trespassing. Please remove them. Yes, ma'am. Rick motioned to another guard I hadn't even seen, who was now standing by the revolving door. Sir, ma'am, this way out. Rick gently, firmly, took my mother by the elbow and lifted her to her feet. It's time to go. My father didn't move. He just stared at me. Let's go, sir, the other guard said, more firmly, placing a hand on his back. I watched them. I watched my 2 security guards escort my parents across the marble floor. My mother was stumbling, crying. My father was just small, defeated. They went through the revolving door, one after the other, pushed by the silent mechanism, For a second, their figures were caught in the curved chrome, distorted, warped, and tiny. Then the door spun, and they were gone, ejected onto the sunlit sidewalk. I stood there for a long time. The atrium was silent again, save for the digital waterfall. "Ms. Carter?" Rick asked, back at my side. "Are you all right? That was—" "I'm fine. Rick?" I said, my voice perfectly even. "Thank you. I'm returning to my office." I got in the elevator as the doors slid shut, sealing me in. My cell phone, the one with their numbers blocked, buzzed. It was the family group chat, the one I'd forgotten to mute. My extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins. Aunt Carol Linda just called me. Hysterical. "Sloan, what did you do? She said you had her thrown out of your office." "Uncle Mike, is it true you're letting the bank take their house? After all they did for you?" Another cousin, Brooke, says, "You've all been worried about Sloan's mental health. This proves it. How could you abandon your family?" The narrative, the Sloan is unstable narrative, it was their last weapon. The elevator doors opened. I walked to my desk. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a notification from the group chat. But it wasn't a message to me. It was Naomi. "Naomi all. Since my aunt and uncle are broadcasting their side of the story, I feel compelled to share the facts. Please see attached." Attachment 1. A screenshot of the original Save the Date Evite with the date November 11th. Attachment 2. A photo of the fraudulent paper invitation with the date November 18th. Attachment 3. The video file of Brooke's toast. "Thank God Sloan couldn't be here." Attachment 4. A screenshot of the USPS mail fraud verification email. Her final message landed like a bomb. Naomi Sloan didn't abandon her family. Her family orchestrated a premeditated campaign, including mail fraud, to erase her, while simultaneously lying to all of us about her mental health. What you're hearing isn't the cry of a victim. It's the rage of a con artist who just got caught. Any further questions can be directed to me or to Sloan's attorney. The group chat went dead, utterly, completely silent. I looked at the message. I looked at the files. Naomi hadn't just countered the narrative. She had executed it. I closed the chat. I opened my workflow file, and I got back to work. The week after the lobby confrontation was quiet. It was the heavy, pressurized silence before a storm breaks. I blocked out the noise and buried myself in my work at Ridgeline. I led a 3-day integration workshop. I signed off on a major platform migration. I controlled the systems I was paid to control, and I ignored the one I had just decommissioned. The first tremor of the aftershock didn't come from them. It came from Dana. She forwarded me an email. It wasn't a legal threat. It was a screenshot from an internal newsletter for the Denver Boulder Design Guild, a private community of high-end suppliers and interior decorators. A major textile house, one of the most exclusive in the Rockies, had sent a coded blast to its members. A professional reminder that our partnerships are built on trust. We reserve the right to dissolve any relationship with a designer found to be providing materially false portfolio information or misrepresenting the ownership of a project. We do not support and will not supply individuals who build their brand on false pretenses. Dana's note was short. Sloan, the CEO of that textile house, is on the board of Arthur Vance's development company. The Vances, the couple from the cabin, they hadn't just walked away from the $85,000 deal. They were systematically and quietly poisoning the well. The next link Dana sent was to an anonymous Denver design blog. The post was titled, "The Stylist, the Sister, and the Stolen Cabin." It was all there. The local it-girl stylist, Brooke, the tense, awkward meeting at a stunning mountain retreat, the pitch of a lifetime, $85,000, and the dramatic walk-in arrival of the actual owner, the stylist's older sister, who calmly provided the Home Pro receipts for the backsplash. Brooke hadn't just lost a contract, she was losing her reputation. In her world, that was the only currency that mattered. The second tremor was more direct. It came to my office line, an unblocked, local number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. "Sloan, hi. This is Brandon, Brooke's husband." His voice was heavy, hesitant, and scraped raw. "Look, I just, I saw the video Naomi sent to the family chat. The toast." He paused, and I heard him take a shaky breath. "I was at that rehearsal dinner. I heard her say it. I just thought it was some stupid, mean inside joke. I didn't get it." Another pause. "And I heard what happened at your office, and at the cabin. Brooke told me you two just had a sister fight. She said you were jealous of her, that you were trying to sabotage her." He sounded so tired. "I believed her. Sloan. I believed the 'you're too busy for the wedding' thing. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." He was looking for something. Absolution. Maybe. An ally. He was a fool. I called him back that evening. He picked up on the first ring, anxiously. "Sloan. Brandon. I received your message." "Hi. Thank you for calling back. I'm going to say this once." I cut him off, my voice perfectly flat. There was no warmth in it. "This is not my business. Your marriage, your wife that is your system to manage. I am not going to offer you absolution, and I am not going to be your confidant." I know, he said, his voice cracking. She's not the person I thought." "You were at the rehearsal dinner," I said. The memory of the video, of her giddy, cruel laugh, sharp in my mind. "You watched her lie. You watched my mother laugh. And you did nothing. You married someone who, when faced with a choice, will always choose the lie over the truth. That is your data point. What you do with that information is up to you. Do not call this number again." I hung up the phone. He was just collateral damage. Another user who had benefited from the corrupt system until the day it crashed. The third tremor was the earthquake. This one was a call from Dana. Her voice wasn't just crisp, it was furious. "Sloan," she said, "they've done something astronomically stupid. We need to act on it, right now." "What they tried to break into the cabin." "Worse," she said, her voice tight with a lawyer's rage. "They tried to steal it, legally," she explained. As part of her service, she'd placed a monitoring flag on the Pine Hollow parcel with the county clerk's office. That flag had been triggered an hour ago. "Someone," she said, "filed a quitclaim gift deed. It was a bare-bones, amateur attempt to transfer the property title from Sloan Carter, an unmarried woman, to a new entity called the Hale Family Trust." I felt my blood run cold. "I don't have a family trust." "Exactly," Dana snapped. "It's a garbage document, a fraudulent filing. The signature for you is a laughable, traced forgery. But here's the kicker. Sloan, the notary stamp on it is dated 3 years ago. They were trying to backdate the transfer, to make it look like you gave them the house long before the wedding. This was a new low. This wasn't family drama. This was a felony." "Who filed it?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "Your mother, Linda Hale. Her signature is on the filing application, clear as day. She walked it into the clerk's office herself this morning. They hadn't just tried to erase me from a wedding, they were now trying to erase my name from a deed." "What do we do?" "We kill it with fire," Dana said. "I'm already on my way to the courthouse. I'm filing a formal, emergency objection. I'm attaching the original, notarized warranty deed, the bill of sale, and a copy of their fraudulent filing. And I am explicitly noting for the record that this is attempted title fraud, filed by a party who has an active no trespass order against them for this exact property. The county clerk is going to reject their filing, shred it, and likely flag your mother for investigation." She was as good as her word. 2 hours later, an email landed in my inbox. It was a PDF of the county's official rejection. It wasn't just a no. It was a no with prejudice. The reason for rejection was listed in bold type. "Filing rejected. Potential violation of CRRS 18-5-102 forgery." They hadn't just failed. They had left a permanent, public record of their crime. While Linda was busy failing at felony fraud, she was also active on the social front. The Sloan is abandoning us story Naomi had squashed was a failure, so she pivoted. She went public. I found out when my phone buzzed with a Facebook notification. My mother, who barely knew how to post, had written a long, rambling, public-facing paragraph, and she had tagged me. It is with the heaviest heart a mother can have that I am asking all our friends and church family for their prayers. Our oldest daughter, Sloan, is going through a very serious mental and emotional crisis. We don't know what to do. She has cut off her entire family, is making irrational threats, and has been taken in by people who are preying on her. We are terrified for her. Please pray that she gets the help she needs before she hurts herself or others. It was the Sloan is unstable narrative, weaponized for a public audience of her church friends and our distant relatives. I read it, and I felt the old, familiar sting of shame, but before I could even draft a reply, Naomi was there. She was my digital firewall. She didn't just comment. She replied directly to my mother's post, so everyone in the thread could see it. Aunt Linda, I find it fascinating that Sloane's mental crisis began on the exact same day she discovered you all committed mail fraud to exclude her from her sister's wedding. And her threats, do you mean the no trespass order she filed after Uncle Thomas assaulted her in her office lobby? For everyone else wondering what crisis Sloane is going through, here is a 10-second video of her loving parents being removed from her workplace by security. She attached the file. The raw, silent, 10-second clip from the Ridgeline lobby security feed. It was damning. It showed Rick Martinez separating my father from me. It showed my mother, crumpled on the marble floor. It showed them being escorted, like criminals, out the revolving door. The effect was immediate. The post, the comments, my mother's entire Facebook profile, it all vanished within an hour. The public, video-proven humiliation was more powerful than any lie she could spin. The final two tremors were just mop-up. Marcus called. Sloane, the firewall test was successful. What happened? Someone, he said, his voice flat, initiated a chargeback on a Capital One credit card for a payment of $11,200. They claimed the payment you made last year was fraudulent and unauthorized. Brooke, desperate, stupid, and broke. Since the card account was closed at your request, Marcus continued, and your credit is legally frozen, the chargeback was dead on arrival. The system worked. They can't touch you. They're just rattling locked doors. That night, I drove back to Pine Hollow. The air was cold, the sky a deep, star-filled black. I had one last piece of hardware to install. I spent an hour on the front porch, drilling carefully into the thick, 100-year-old wood beam by the door. I installed a high-definition, motion-activated video doorbell camera. I linked it to the new, secure Wi-Fi hotspot I'd brought. I tested the app on my phone. A clear, crisp, wide-angle view of my entire driveway. From the gravel road to the front step, any motion, any sound, would ping my phone directly. The fortress was complete. I finished, and I sat down on the top step of the porch, the one my grandfather had laid by hand. My phone was silent. No panicked texts, no calls from remorseful husbands, no fraud alerts. I looked out at the mountains, their sharp ridges like a black cutout against the starry sky. For the first time in my entire adult life, I was sitting here, in this place I had paid for, and I didn't feel the creeping, acidic guilt. I didn't feel guilty for the money I'd spent. I didn't feel guilty for not sharing. I didn't feel the familiar, low-grade dread that someone would call, that an emergency was looming, that a bill was due. I had been the family responsible one for so long. I had confused that role with my identity. I had confused love with debt. They hadn't just lied about a wedding. They had built an entire false narrative for me, the cold, boring, unstable ATM, so they never had to face the truth about themselves, the grifter, the enabler, and the coward. The cold, clean mountain air hit my lungs. It didn't feel cold. It felt clarifying. I had paid $11,200 $200 for Brooke's brunch habit. I had paid $28,400 for a faulty foundation. I had paid $210,000 for this cabin. But this feeling, this absolute, cold, brilliant, silent peace, this was the first thing I had ever truly owned, and it was priceless. The week after the lobby assault was about building the new architecture, the firewall was built. Now I was posting the warning signs. My family had operated in the ambiguous, gray fog of love and obligation for decades. I was about to introduce them to the binary, unmistakable clarity of a legal contract. I sat with Dana in her office. "I'm not interested in a restraining order," I told her, my voice firm. "Not yet. That's a nuclear option, and it's messy. I want a standard operating procedure. I want the rules of engagement defined so clearly that when they violate them, the next step is simple and automatic." Dana nodded, a small, grim smile on her face. "You don't want to just end the game. You want to write a new rule book that they're forced to play by. I like it." She called it the boundary letter. It was 4 pages long, printed on her firm's heavy cream-colored bond letterhead. It was addressed to Linda Hale, Thomas Hale, and Brooke Hale, individually. It was a masterpiece of cold, corporate precision. It contained 4 primary clauses. 1, I dictated, and she typed. "All financial requests, implications of requests, or discussions of monetary need are hereby prohibited. Sloan Carter will not, under any circumstances, provide funds, co-sign loans, act as a guarantor, or offer any form of financial support. Any attempt to solicit funds, directly or indirectly, will be documented and considered harassment. 2. You are not permitted at any property owned or rented by Sloan Carter, including, but not limited to, the Pine Hollow cabin and her personal residence. You are further forbidden from her place of employment, the Ridgeline Systems campus. All unannounced appearances will be considered trespassing and/or harassment, and law enforcement will be engaged immediately, referencing the no trespass order already on file. 3. You are explicitly forbidden from discussing Sloan Carter's mental or emotional health, privately or publicly, with any third party, any further attempts to spread false narratives." And here, Dana gleefully added the citations: Ref Facebook post, November 15th, Ref statements to Naomi Carter, November 11th, will be met with an immediate cease and desist, followed by a civil action for libel and slander. 4, I finished. All future communication, if strictly necessary, must be conducted via written letter and mailed exclusively to the office of Dana Ortiz. Esquire, any attempt to contact Sloan Carter directly via phone call, text message, email, social media, or third-party proxy will be ignored, documented, and held as a formal violation of these terms. Dana slid the 3 originals across her desk. I signed the bottom of each. My signature was a clean, sharp, unwavering line. "We're sending these via certified mail. Return receipt requested," she said. The moment they sign that little green card, the clock starts. They are officially, legally informed. The fog is gone. Sloan, welcome to the sunshine. 3 days later, the green return receipt cards were back in Dana's file. Linda signed, Thomas signed, Brooke signed. They were served. The new system was live. The fallout at Ridgeline from the lobby incident was, thankfully, minimal. Rick Martinez, the head of security, had filed a formal incident report classifying my father as a potential security threat, and my access card now triggered a silent escort protocol when I entered the building. Something I appreciated. My boss, Paul, called me into his office. He looked uncomfortable. "Sloan," he started, closing the door. "I don't need to know the details. Your personal life is yours. But I do need to know, as your manager, if you're okay, and if this situation is contained, is this going to bleed into your work?" I appreciated his directness. "I'm fine. Paul, thank you for asking. The situation was a family financial dispute that escalated. It's now fully contained by my legal counsel. It will not happen again. I can guarantee it." He studied my face, looking for any crack, any tremor. He found none. He nodded, satisfied. Good, he said, the relief palpable. Because we just finalized the PR acquisition. It's a full-stack infrastructure merger. It's a mess. Sloan, high stakes, tangled systems, and a lot of resistant executives. I need my best transformation manager to lead the integration. I need you. Can you do it? The old Sloan would have seen this project as a place to hide, a workload to bury her feelings under. The new Sloan saw it as a contract. Yes, I said. I can lead it. I'll have the preliminary integration plan and stakeholder map on your desk by Friday. I took the project. I worked 12-hour days that week. But it was different. I was focused, efficient, and detached. I wasn't working to escape my life. I was working because I was good at it. And when I powered down my laptop at 7 p.m., I left the project at the office. My life was no longer one blurred, desperate, interconnected system. It was compartmentalized. The following Saturday, I drove up to Pine Hollow, but I didn't go alone. I invited Naomi, who flew in from Chicago just for the weekend. I invited 2 colleagues from Ridgeline, people who knew me only as Sloan the manager, not Sloan the family ATM. It was the first time I had ever hosted people at the cabin, the first time I had chosen the guest list. We didn't talk about my family. We didn't talk about the drama. We sat on the deck. We grilled steaks. Someone played a guitar, badly, and we sang along, badly. We drank good whiskey. The house was filled with warmth, with firelight, with my laughter. Late that night, long after the others had gone to bed, Naomi and I were the last ones awake, sitting by the dying embers of the fire pit. "You're okay, Sloan," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. I was worried. When I sent that text bomb to the family, I thought maybe I'd gone too far. "You went exactly far enough, Naomi," I said, swirling the last of the whiskey in my glass. "You brought Data to an emotional fight. It was the only language they, and everyone else, would understand." She was quiet for a long time, staring into the coals. "So what happens now? What if they, I don't know, actually apologize? What if Aunt Linda shows up, falls on her knees, really, truly repents for all of it? Do you let them back in?" I thought about it. I thought about the forged invitation, the stolen money, the lobby assault, the attempted felony, the years of lies. "An apology doesn't change the ink on the deed, Naomi," I said. "It doesn't unsign the police report. It doesn't undo the mail fraud. An apology is just more data. It's not a password. They don't get access again, ever." Naomi smiled, a real, satisfied smile. "Good. Just checking." The new system was working, and the old users were rattling the locked doors. I had unblocked their numbers, not to communicate, but to document, as predicted. Once the certified letters arrived, the text started again, not the panic of the first barrage, but a different, more manipulative tactic. From Mom Sloan, "I'm just looking at a picture of you as a little girl in your Easter dress. My heart is just broken. How did you become this cold person?" From Dad, "I hope you're proud of yourself. You've torn this family apart." From Brooke, "I've lost everything because of you. Everything. I'm telling everyone what you did. I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing." I'd set up an auto-reply on my phone, a feature I used for work. Any text from their numbers received an immediate, automated, sterile response. "Your message has not been read. For all future correspondence, please contact my attorney, Dana Ortiz, Esquire. Further attempts at direct contact will be logged as harassment." I just screenshotted their messages and forwarded them to Dana's paralegal for the violations file. Brooke, naturally, couldn't handle the silence. She went back to the only platform she had left. She posted an Instagram story. It was a black screen with white text. "Some people are so cold-hearted and narcissistic, they'd rather see their family homeless in the winter than lend a hand. Blood is thicker than water. Unless you're a narcissist." It was gone in an hour, but As Dana had taught me, the internet is forever. One of the suppliers from the Denver Boulder Guild, the one she'd tried to defraud, had already screenshotted it and sent it to Arthur Vance, who sent it to Dana, who sent it to me. She was just digging her own professional grave deeper, one petty, misspelled post at a time. Then came the last, pathetic attempt, a call from Brandon. Again, I sent him to voicemail. "Sloan, please, don't hang up. I just need to talk to someone. She's not good. She's talking about suing you for emotional distress or something. I told her that's insane. I think I'm leaving her." His voice cracked. "I really am. And I wanted to maybe buy you dinner and apologize properly for all of it." He was a rat leaving a sinking ship, trying to jump onto mine. He wasn't just leaving his wife. He was trying to line up her replacement, to ally himself with the person who held the power. I texted him back. One message. "Brandon, I am not a bridge for you to walk across as you burn your old life, and I am not a character in your marital drama. Do not ever contact me again." I blocked his number, permanently. That night, I was back at Pine Hollow, alone. The integration project at Ridgeline was intense, and I needed the quiet. I was sitting on the deck, under the sharp, cold stars, reading a book. The scent of pine was like a cleansing balm. The new camera I'd installed was a silent, digital watchdog. I felt, for the first time since this all started, a sense of profound, impermeable peace. The quiet was absolute. My fortress was holding. Then my phone, sitting on the patio table, lit up. It wasn't a text. It wasn't a call. It was a push notification from the doorbell camera app. Motion detected at front gate. My heart didn't leap. It just stopped. It went cold. I tapped the notification. The app opened, connecting to the live feed. The high definition, black and white, night vision view flooded my screen. A vehicle was stopped on the gravel road, just outside my locked gate. It was an old, dark-colored SUV. A headlight was out. The left front fender was crumpled. It was my father's truck. I watched, my breath held in my chest. He just sat there, engine idling, his one working headlight cutting a bright, lonely cone into the darkness. He was outside the boundary. He was outside the line. Then, the driver's side door creaked open. My father, Thomas Hale, stepped out of the truck. He stood in the road for a long moment, staring at the cabin, a dark silhouette against the trees, staring right at the camera, though he didn't know it was there. My thumb hovered over the red Call 911 button in the app. My other thumb hovered over the microphone icon, the one that would let me speak. He just stood there, and then he took a step, and another. He walked right up to the new, heavy-gauge steel gate. He reached out and wrapped his hand around the cold, metal bar. He shook it. A hard, rattling jolt. He was testing the lock. I looked at the timestamp on the camera feed. 11:38 p.m. My father was shaking the gate to my property, in the dark, in the mountains, in violation of a legal notice. My thumb pressed the record button. The app confirmed live feed is now being recorded. I didn't move from the deck. I just sat there in the cold dark. I pressed the icon for the front porch light. A flood of bright, white light suddenly illuminated the entire gate area, the deck, and the front of the cabin. Thomas flinched. Throwing a hand up to shield his eyes, he stumbled back, caught in the sudden glare. From the passenger side of the truck, a new voice, my mother. The camera's sensitive microphone picked up her panicked whisper. "Thomas, stop it. She'll see us. Turn it off." "She already sees us," my father snarled, still blinking into the light. Then, my mother got out. She didn't come to the gate. She stood by the truck, her hands fluttering in that familiar wounded bird way. She tried the tactic that had worked for 59 years. She tried to sound reasonable. "Sloan," she called out. Her voice was thin in the cold air. "Sloan, honey, we're not here to make trouble. It's our anniversary tomorrow. We just wanted to take a few pictures. The yard here is just so pretty." The yard? She was testing the boundary, trying to redefine the terms. I pressed the microphone icon on my phone. My voice, amplified by the speaker at the gate, boomed out into the night, metallic and devoid of all warmth. "This is not your yard, Mom!" She jumped, a small, terrified gasp. My father's reaction was different. The direct, cold denial snapped his control. He lunged at the gate again, his face purple, contorted in the harsh porch light. He wasn't just shaking it now, he was pounding it. The heavy steel frame rattled in its fittings. "You owe us!" he roared, his voice cracking. "This cabin, your job, your life, we gave you everything, you ungrateful child. You owe us." I stopped recording that clip. Saved it. Exhibit C damage threat. MP4. While he was still screaming, my other hand was dialing. "Clear Creek County Sheriff's Department. Dispatch." "Hello," I said, my voice perfectly calm. "My name is Sloan Carter. I am at the Pine Hollow property at 22640 Mountain Crest Lane. I have active trespassers on site. I am requesting an immediate dispatch." "Ma'am, are they on the property or at the gate?" "They are at the locked gate, refusing to leave, and attempting to damage the property. I have a notarized, filed no trespass order against them. The case ID is—" I read the number Dana had given me from the file. The dispatcher's tone changed. This wasn't a maybe, this was a yes. "Thank you. Ms. Carter, I see the order. We have a deputy in Idaho Springs. He's en route. ETA 10 minutes. Please lock your doors and do not engage." "Thank you," I said, and hung up. My father was still muttering, pacing back and forth in front of his truck's one headlight. My mother was now weeping. "You've called them, haven't you? You're calling the police on your father?" "I am calling the police on a trespasser." I boomed through the speaker again. "The deputy is en route. Leave now, and I will ask him to stand down, stay, and you will be arrested." This caused a new wave of panic. My father actually ran back to the driver's side and opened the door. He was going to leave, but just as he put one foot in the truck, a new set of headlights appeared, coming up the mountain road. It wasn't the sheriff, not yet. It was a sleek, white Lexus. It pulled up right behind my father's battered SUV. The driver's door opened, and Brooke stepped out. I stared at the camera feed, baffled. This was new. She wasn't in sweatpants. She wasn't crying. She was wearing a full-length, sequined, silver evening gown. Her hair and makeup were flawless. In her arms, she held a massive bouquet of white lilies and roses. "What are you doing?" Brooke snapped at our parents. "He's not here yet. You've ruined the shot." My mother whimpered. Sloan called the police. "The police." Brooke looked up at my brightly lit porch. At the black, unblinking eye of the camera she couldn't see. "She's bluffing. She wouldn't dare. Dad, plug in the lights. We have to get this set up." And then, the passenger door of the Lexus opened. A man got out. He was carrying a tripod and 2 heavy-duty camera bags, a professional photographer. This wasn't an ambush. This wasn't a desperate plea. This was a photo shoot. My mind raced, trying to compute the logic. The dress, the flowers, the anniversary, Brooke's dress, Brooke's flowers. They were restaging her wedding photos. They were restaging the wedding I was never invited to on the property I had explicitly forbidden them from. The audacity was so profound, so layered, it was almost art. "Dad, the outlet," Brooke commanded. "I'm on it," my father grumbled. He went to the back of his truck and pulled out a string of fairy lights, the same kind that had been at the real wedding. He walked to the side of my gate, near the junction box for the keypad. He was fumbling in the dark. "Where is it?" "Sloan put one here," he muttered. He found it. The external. Weatherproof GFI outlet. Earl the locksmith had confirmed was on my property, tied to my breaker, the one I used for the electric weed whacker. He plugged the lights in. Suddenly, my fence. My fence was draped in a cascade of twinkling white lights. My camera feed registered it all. "Okay, Mark," Brooke said to the photographer. "Let's get the shot. I want the gate in the foreground, and the house, all lit up, in the background. Make it look, ours. This wasn't just trespassing. This wasn't just harassment. Dana, I whispered to the dark, you're not going to believe this. They were committing utility theft. They were violating the no trespass order, and they were manufacturing evidence photographs to perpetuate the lie that this was their family home. The photographer was setting up his tripod. Okay, Brooke, let's get Mom and Dad in first. A nice, warm anniversary shot by the gate. No, me first, Brooke insisted, preening. I need one of just me, holding the bouquet, right here. She stepped past the invisible property line. She put her hand on my gate, the one my father had been pounding. She leaned against it, striking a pose, the sequins of her dress flashing in the fairy lights. She was on my land. I didn't use the speaker. I didn't need to. Because at that exact moment, a third set of headlights appeared. These ones were different. They were high, bright, and flashing, red and blue, cutting strobes through the pine trees. The sheriff's patrol car. It crunched to a stop on the gravel, pinning all three of their vehicles. The photographer's flash went off. Forgotten. My mother screamed. Brooke dropped her bouquet. My father just froze. A tall, broad-shouldered deputy stepped out. He was all business. His flashlight beam hit my father, then my mother, then a completely bewildered-looking photographer, then Brooke, who was still frozen in her sequined gown, 1 foot inside my property line. Folks, the deputy's voice boomed, what are we doing out here? This is private property. My mother, ever the victim, surged forward. Officer, thank God. It's our daughter. She's unstable. She locked us out. We're just her parents. We're worried about her. The deputy's flashlight beam didn't waver. Are you Linda Hale? Yes, she said, relieved. Yes, I am. And you are Thomas Hale. I am, my father said, trying to sound gruff. And you? His light found Brooke. Are Brooke Hale? Yes, she said, trying to muster some dignity. This is all a misunderstanding. This is our family cabin. The deputy sighed. He turned his flashlight beam to the porch, where I was now standing, my phone in my hand, the blue file under my arm. Are you Sloane Carter, ma'am? I am, deputy. I called down. Thank you for coming. I walked down the steps. I did not unlock the gate. I walked to the edge of it, to the pedestrian entrance. Ma'am, can you confirm these are the individuals listed on the no trespass order, case file? They are, I said. Linda, Thomas, and Brooke Hale. I passed the notarized, court-filed copy of the order through the bars. The deputy took it, reviewed it under his flashlight. Officer, my mother pleaded. It's a mistake. We are her family we paid for. Ma'am, the deputy cut her off, his voice flat and tired. Relationship does not supersede paperwork. This is a lawful no trespass order. You are all in violation of it. We were just taking pictures. Brooke shrieked, finally finding her voice. He, she pointed at the photographer, is with me. It's for my portfolio. Ma'am, you are currently standing on the property, the deputy said to Brooke. Step back, now, back onto the public road. Brooke scrambled backward, her heels digging in the gravel. But I just need to get the angle, she protested. The light, you can get the angle from the road, or you can get the angle from the back of my car, the deputy said. Without a trace of humor, Brooke's mouth snapped shut. The deputy's flashlight beam then found the string of lights. He followed the cord from my fence to my external outlet. Sir, he said to my father, did you plug this in? My father, caught, just nodded dumbly. So, not only are you all trespassing, the deputy said, you're also plugged into the owner's electrical socket. That's utility theft. My mother began to cry. Real, terrified sobs this time. The photographer was frantically packing his bags. I'm not part of this, he kept saying. I was just hired for a gig. My father just stared at me, through the bars of the gate. His face was a mask of such pure, undiluted hatred, it was almost shocking. The camera on my porch, the one he didn't know about, was recording his face. It recorded him as he muttered, just loud enough for the microphone to pick up, "You ungrateful, worthless daughter." I didn't react. I just looked at the deputy. "So, what happens now?" The deputy tore a page from his notebook. "Ordinarily, this is an arrest, but since this is the first documented violation of the order, I am giving them a formal, written warning. It goes on their record. It's attached to your case file. Next time, no warning. I just take them to jail." "Understood," he said to the Hales. They all just nodded, silent. "I'm also noting the utility theft," he said, handing the warning to my father. "That's a citation. Next time, separate from the trespassing." He turned to my father. "Unplug those lights, now." My father, humiliated, ripped the plug from my socket. The fence went dark. "Pack them up, all of you. Get in your vehicles, and get off this mountain," the deputy commanded. It was a pathetic scramble. My mother, sobbing, got into the truck. My father threw the wad of lights into the truck bed. Brooke, dragging her bouquet, got into her Lexus, the photographer throwing his gear in the back. The deputy waited, his car's lights still flashing, until the red taillights of the Lexus and the one taillight of the truck disappeared down the mountain. He handed me back my paperwork. "You're all set. Ms. Carter, you've got a good camera system. Make sure you save that recording. You have a quiet night." "Thank you, Deputy. I will." He got in his car and drove away. The silence of the mountain rushed back in, absolute and total. I stood at the gate for a long time. They had come. They had violated the boundary, and the system had worked. The firewall had held. The rules I had written were now being enforced by the state. I turned off the porch light and went back inside. I locked my new deadbolt. I exported the video file of my father's threat and the utility theft. I emailed it to Dana. Subject violation 1, time-stamped, evidence for the affidavit. This wasn't just a boundary anymore. This was a siege, and they had just lost the first battle. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark on my deck, the cold seeping into my bones, and I watched the night vision feed from the camera. I watched the spot where their taillights had disappeared. The deputy's visit wasn't an ending. It was a violation. It was proof that the boundary letter, the no trespass notice, they were just paper. To them, rules were suggestions, something for other people. Last night, they had tested the perimeter, they had rattled the gate, and they had confirmed my deepest held data point: they would never, ever stop. The sun came up, pale and watery. I hadn't moved. My resolve had hardened from steel into something else, something colder, more brittle, more absolute. At 9 a.m., just as I knew she would, Dana's black Audi crunched up the gravel. She wasn't alone. A woman in a sharp blazer sat in her passenger seat, carrying a heavy-duty briefcase. Dana stepped out onto the gravel, her heels digging in. She didn't say good morning. She just looked at the gate, at the tracks in the dirt, at the porch. "I got the video files," she said. Her voice was pure ice. Violation 1, attempted property damage, utility theft, and a direct verbal threat from Thomas, recorded. She gestured to the woman, who had followed her out. "Sloan, this is Ms. Alvarez. She's a mobile notary." Dana pulled a sheaf of papers from her own briefcase. The no trespass notice was a warning. "Sloan, it was a piece of paper that allowed you to call the cops. What we are doing now is different. We are loading the gun." She handed me the document. "This is a criminal trespass affidavit. This is your sworn, notarized testimony, detailing the serial violations, the harassment, the mail fraud, the attempted title fraud, and last night's incident. We are filing this with the county clerk and the sheriff's department this afternoon. This isn't a warning anymore. This is a pre-signed criminal complaint. The next time you call 911, the deputy doesn't have a conversation. He doesn't give a warning. He simply checks the file, sees this affidavit, and arrests them. Period. No discretion. It's the final lock." Ms. Alvarez stepped forward. "Ms. Carter, Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the facts contained in this affidavit are true and correct, to the best of your knowledge? I looked at the mountains. I do. I took the pen. I signed my name. My signature was a sharp, clear, unwavering line. Ms. Alvarez embossed it with her seal, a permanent, legal scar. Now, I said, sliding the affidavit back to Dana. It's time for the final debrief, the one where we present the findings to the failed project team. I pulled out my phone. I unblocked their numbers for exactly 60 seconds, just long enough to send a single, final group text. I will be at the public hikers pull-off at the base of the mountain road, noon. Be there if you want to understand the terms of your surrender. This is not a discussion. I reblocked them before a reply could even come. The spot was perfect. It wasn't my land. It was a patch of gravel and dirt owned by the county, surrounded by pine trees. It was public. It was neutral. I backed my Subaru into a spot. Trunk facing the road. Dana stood beside me. Her own car parked adjacent. A small, dark lens was visible on her lapel. Her body cam was recording. At 12:05, they came. My father's truck. That single. Broken headlight, a perfect metaphor for the man. They looked wrecked. My father's face was a gray, stubbled mask of fury. My mother looked like she had cried herself hollow. And Brooke was in the back, behind the driver, her face hidden behind oversized black sunglasses, radiating pure, toxic silence. They got out. They stood 10 feet from my car. A hostile, broken triangle. "What is this? Sloan?" my father growled, his hands clenching and unclenching. "Another one of your games, another trick." "No," I said. My voice was calm, clear. It carried easily in the thin air. "This is the final audit." I clicked the button to pop my trunk. I walked to the back of my Subaru. "You've been operating under a set of false assumptions," I said, my voice the one I used in boardrooms. "I'm here to correct the data." I reached into my blue file. Exhibit A. I dropped the thick, notarized deed for Pine Hollow onto the trunk's carpet. My name, my only name, purchased for $210,000 cash to save your house from foreclosure. Exhibit B. I dropped the stack of bank statements. The $11,200 for Brooke's credit card, the $28,400 for your foundation, the $2,900 and $1,450 stolen from my bonus, the $760 you, Mom, stole from that account after I said no. Exhibit C. I dropped the rejected fraudulent gift deed. Your attempt, Mom, to steal my house with a forged, backdated document, a felony. Exhibit D. The USPS mail fraud verification. Your conspiracy to ensure I never got the real invitation. Exhibit E. The boundary letter. The one you all signed for, the one you violated. And Exhibit F. I dropped the police report from last night. The official warning for trespassing and utility theft, the one that recorded your death threat. Dad. They stared, the physical evidence of their treachery, all laid out in the open. My mother's hand was at her mouth. You kept all this." "I'm the one with the spreadsheets, Mom," I said. "You've always been right about that. I keep records." I pulled out my phone. I hit play. Brooke's voice, giddy, drunk, and cruel, filled the quiet parking lot. "And thank God Sloan couldn't be here, right, Mom? Can you imagine she'd just be in the corner, judging everyone and telling them about her spreadsheets and her salary?" The audio clip ended. The silence that followed was absolute. Brooke flinched, the sound of her own voice hitting her like a physical slap. This was the moment. My mother's face crumpled. The last mask fell. She saw the full, comprehensive, undeniable truth. She took one stumbling step forward, her hand out. "Sloan, honey, I'm so sorry." "Stop." I held up my hand. The word wasn't a shout. It was a command. It was a wall of ice. She froze. "No, I did not come here for your apology. I am not interested in it." I looked at each of them, my gaze a physical weight. An apology is for a mistake. You didn't make a mistake. I looked at Brooke. Made a choice. I looked at my mother. Ran a conspiracy. I looked at my father. Provided the threats, this was a long-term, calculated strategy of fraud, theft, and abuse. I reached into Dana's briefcase. I pulled out 3 large envelopes. I came here, I said, to end it. I walked forward. I handed one to each of them. This is your final notice. It is a copy of the criminal trespass affidavit. I signed this morning. It has already been filed with the county. It is active. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification. If you call me, if you text me, if you post about me, if you send a proxy, if you are seen by my cameras, that affidavit is triggered. I will not call you. I will not warn you. I will call the sheriff, and you will be prosecuted. Dana will see to it personally. We are done. Brooke, still hiding behind her sunglasses, finally spoke. Her voice was a low, venomous hiss. You are destroying this family. I looked at her, at the sister who had erased me, at the stylist who had tried to build a career on my assets. The family was already destroyed, I said, my voice dropping. You just destroyed me first. I didn't wait for her reply. I didn't need one. I turned my back on them. I walked to my car. I slammed the trunk. The sound was a gunshot. I got in. I started the engine. Dana was already in her car. I put the Subaru in drive. I didn't look at them, but as I pulled away, my rearview mirror caught the tableau. My mother had fallen to her knees in the gravel, her body heaving with sobs. My father, his face a mask of purple, impotent rage, punched the air, a hard, silent, meaningless blow, and Brooke yanked open the truck door, pulled out the wilted dead bouquet of lilies from last night's failed photo shoot. She screamed, a sound I couldn't hear, and threw it on the ground, the dead white petals scattering in the dirt. I kept driving. I turned onto the mountain road. I drove past the spot where they had stood. I drove up to my gate. I clicked the remote. The heavy steel gate slid open. A smooth, silent retraction. I drove through. I clicked the remote again. I watched in my mirror as the gate slid closed. The heavy-duty lock dropped into place. A final, metallic thunk. The sound of a vault ceiling. It echoed. Just once, across the pines. I parked my car. I walked up the stone steps, onto my porch. I unlocked my door. I stepped inside. I walked to the small wooden hook by the door. I took the single, solitary, heavy brass key from my pocket. I hung it on the hook. It chimed, just once, against the wood. One key. Mine. The sound was dry. It was absolute. It was the end. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'm curious. Where in the world are you listening from? Let me know in the comments so we can connect. Please share your thoughts on the story. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, like this video, and support the channel by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.